Welcome to Amazon Answers. I'm Jared, and today we are talking about Batman Ninja 2 Wonder Woman. Oh boy, these movies. This is the most anime version of these characters that I have ever seen. Like, remember, this is the movie where at the end of the first, oh, it's a movie series, at the end of the first one, the idea is, okay, so let's have like an epic kaiju battle, but it's Batman. How are we going to do that? I know. Let's have a bunch of bats come together with a bunch of monkeys and create 1939 Batman. And I'm like, what the hell? So then you get to the part 2, which I was concerned about this because I'm like, oh boy, here we go. But ironically, the movie that deals with alternate realities ends up being the simpler of the two movies to understand. So the idea is this movie, it takes place in a world where it's basically all the superheroes are like members of like Japanese crime families. So that's the basic plot of this. So the funny thing about this, it actually fits really well, I need to say. It's like when you actually like look at like the way the universe is set up, they actually do a lot of cool like reimaginings of things, like with Jessica Cruz being like, oh, she was on the run from gambling debts, so she discovered the lantern. But the other thing I really like about this is, so then we get to Wonder Woman. And again, how ironic is it that in a Batman movie, again, in a Batman animated movie, we actually have a pretty solid depiction of Wonder Woman. That will never not be like the biggest amount of irony I have ever seen. All right? Drop in the chat your questions about Batman Ninja 2 Wonder Woman, because this is the version that I think they really need to start replicating, because in this version, Diana is still like the only member of the Justice League, or the Yakuza League, as they call in this, are actually like good and not evil, which that's the first part that's really important here. It's kind of like in Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League, where Diana is the only one not being mind controlled by Brainiac. So that's actually really cool there. And then she like is the one that's like fighting against like Superman and like the other league members in order to like save people. She even saves Harley Quinn. She even saves like Batman. So they play a lot with this, and they also like play with the whole, oh, she has like a friendship with Arthur, obviously Aquaman, and like they grew up together and stuff. So I do like the more that they play with that. But the first thing that I really dig about this movie is that, again, I like movies that reinterpret like DC in new ways, but they have to also keep to the actual lore of the character. Like, compare this to, like, let's say Aztec Batman, which kind of like tried to reimagine Batman as like in the Aztec times, which sounds cool. The movie was pretty enjoyable, but overall it's like, I'm like, I kind of am not really like that into it. That was just me. But yeah, as far as this version of Wonder Woman, the other thing that I really like about it is when she is like sort of receiving visions of her other reality selves. What's kind of cool is she ends up like is like you see like flashes of like Kingdom Come Wonder Woman, both in the Golden Eagle armor and the regular version, New 52. We see a lot of different versions of Wonder Woman, which I really appreciate how they do that, because too many times a lot of these like creatives like ignore significant parts of these characters. Luckily, this one doesn't, so I really do appreciate that. But yeah, so in terms of like this, so and again, the funny part about it is that is that it's basically taking place in a world where Batman's a member, where like not Batman, where the Justice League are like all Yakuza people. But again, it's like, oh, okay, there's like a lot of really cool stuff that like they play around with this. And honestly, I would not be opposed if they like were to continue this universe as a comic, because I think that this universe would do great as a comic adaptation. But yeah, so again, drop any questions you guys have about this version of Wonder Woman, and I'll be sure to answer it. But if they were to do like a sequel to this, I could definitely see them like doing a more Wonder Woman focused one, because that actually would be like, because you could like explore like her side of the world and stuff, or maybe just do more. How about a Justice League like thing where there's time travel and stuff that's in this universe? That would actually be really cool if they actually like were to like honestly actually care enough to do that. Or like if DC wanted cash, all they would have to do is really just tell them, okay, so this is basically the story. Just do it. Just do it. That's what I think they really need to be really successful with that. But yeah, so any questions about Batman Ninja 2, Wonder Woman as we go on, go ahead and drop them. But yeah, and this version kind of reminded me a little bit of the Absolute Wonder Woman, because it involves a lot of like, what's the word? It involves a lot of like reinvention of the character. Like now she is like, so it's not necessarily like she's raised in hell, but she's raised in a wholly different scenario than like she would in the main continuity. And this movie definitely plays around with that. And I really do like that. And then it like they roll around with Diana like being more of like a hardcore warrior version. So I really dig that. But yeah, so what other questions you guys have? Let's ask me any questions about Batman, Yakuza, Wonder Woman, whatever you guys would like to know about for this version of Wonder Woman. I got anything you guys would like to ask, anything whatsoever, because there's plenty of questions that that you could ask about this version of the character. Anything whatsoever, if you guys are in the chat. But yeah, in terms of like where I think the character is gonna end up going, so, and you can also ask me any questions about Wonder Woman in general. It's like anything you guys would like to know. But yeah, there's any number of like ways that they can continue the universe in a way that really feels like organic and really like respects the lore of the character. Because that's the other thing about this, because when I was watching the documentary for this movie, one of the things that struck me, and credit to the Japanese creators of this for doing this, because they definitely are known for this. When the movie was like assigned to them, they did research specifically into all the characters that they wanted them to do. And it's like Jessica Cruz is an example of this. So they were asked to use Jessica Cruz as the Green Lantern in the movie, which is awesome. But so what they ended up doing was the art director did research into the character. Like, okay, so what do we like essentially? So who is Jessica Cruz? Is stuff. This is also where we learn that Simon Baz is apparently her sidekick now, but that's more hilarity later. But what this ends up doing that I really dig is like he said that like he did all this research to understand who the character is. And I'm like, you could definitely tell that with like every single character here. And this is how I know that whenever I'm reading an Elseworld story or like a reinvention story like this, when you can essentially completely reinvent the character, but it still feels like the character, that is the balancing act that a lot of creators run into. That's why I think the Absolute universe is doing really well, because again, everything feels completely different, but still familiar at the same time. That in and of itself is a huge, like, huge undertaking by a lot of creatives, and it's one of the things that they fail so much. I mean, 343 tried this with Halo, and Lord knows that didn't work. And you also have like Tom King's Wonder Woman does not work on this. Any Wonder Woman post Flashpoint, except for Charles Sewell, really doesn't work when you get down to it, because they either go too far in one direction or the other, and it doesn't feel like Wonder Woman. Like I've said many times, it's supposed to be like this balance between her being a warrior and a diplomat, or as Robert so eloquently puts on the show, it's supposed to be more of like that, of like her being like a like, what's the word? Her being like a diplomat, and like her being a superhero. Because you can't really like, ultimately she is a superhero as well. You can't avoid that or like completely discount that. That's the big issue that a lot of these like creators really run into. But yeah, that's the hilarious part about this, because it's like, the thing is like when creators say that like it's tough to create new characters because, or like to reinvent stuff because they try to go too far. The thing about this is like, it's not too hard to actually like reinvent like certain characters and make them like new and fresh. The problem is too many writers just want to like reinvent them for reinvention's sake, and that's not the way you're supposed to do it. If you really want to like reinvent stuff, it needs to feel somewhat like the previous continuity, however that may be. Because if it doesn't, what's the point of reinventing? Where with this movie, I got news for you. With this movie, what this ends up doing is like it completely reinvents Wonder Woman. Obviously, she's not like a Japanese family like owner, if you will, for lack of a better term, right? Johnny says, had a nice conversation in the other stream. Oh, thanks. Yeah. But so that's the thing where it's not impossible to reinvent these characters, and you can reinvent them however you really want ultimately, but at least try and make it seem somewhat like the character. And that's the problem that like a lot of movie adaptations also run into, is like they tend to go really too far, particularly nowadays where you have the creator straight up crapping on the source material and trying to improve it. But isn't it funny that when they try to improve it, they end up doing something that is either bastardization or drastically inferior to like this. Now, again, I don't expect a one-to-one like adaptation, obviously, because I don't think anyone should really expect these adaptations to be one-to-one. Because I'm sorry, you're not going to get that. Sorry, you're just not, because there are stuff that comes out that's like in the comics, let's say, that aren't going to translate well. Like, let me put it this way. If someone was going to adapt Under the Red Hood for a live action movie, well, actually, that's a good example. Look at the animated Under the Red Hood. What did that leave out of Jason Todd's origin? The fact that Superboy Prime punched him back to life. So it's like, yeah, and that's literally the origin. Like, and now finding people think after Man of Tomorrow, Dave Lewis will just hire his own DC CEO. And that's a good point based on usually. Well, yeah, whenever you have like a merger, like Paramount's going on with DC right now, whenever you have a merger, the new crew is going to want to have his own people. They could say whatever they want now until they actually have the contracts inked. I'm not going to buy anything that they say, because they could say this just to get people on board and then do the complete opposite. So it's like, just wait and see about how he does later. But remember, all the people that are saying, oh, he won't fire he won't fire Gunn are the same people that didn't think that when Zaslav bought Warner Brothers that he would like fire everyone and hire his own people. Look what happened with that. But anyway, it's like the problem with like a lot. Now, the other thing that's very interesting about this. Again, back to the Jason Todd thing. The thing about why Under the Red Hood works as an adaptation is because, yes, it leaves out the very comic booky, punches walls of reality in order to revive someone. By the way, it would be one thing if they did one thing. If they did, Hamada joined Paramount with and transfer DC. I don't think so because he has a bad track record of DC. I really feel like they'll just stick with someone else. So I really doubt they'll put Hamada in for that. But anyway, back to this. The thing about like adaptations is with Under the Red Hood, they still got the important part of the story, which was that Jason Todd comes back to life and screws with Batman as basically DC's Punisher. That's what the important part of that story is. So it's like, you don't necessarily need to do like one-to-one recreations. And honestly, I feel like anyone that like bashes a movie because it's not a one-to-one recreation of a movie is really not like being honest about it. Johnny says, would like an adaptation of Dial H for Hero. I do. By the way, for those who don't know who Dial H for Hero is, it's a character that basically has a rotary phone. And what he does is he like essentially randomly dials a number, and that number gives him a random superpower. It's kind of like DC, official DC's version of Ben 10, essentially. But yeah, but it's like on that. It's like you can't expect. It's like everyone that was like crapping on, like, say, Snyder for not straight up adapting or for not getting like 100% comic accuracy. You're never going to have that no matter what creative it is. Gunn didn't do 100% comic accurate. Reeve was not 100% comic accurate. You're never going to get 100% comic accurate. And people that say, well, we don't expect that. And I'm like, then why do you keep saying it's not comic accurate? It's like you can't keep redefining what the argument is, because I see so many times people just keep reinventing the freaking argument here. And it's honestly, it's very dishonest in terms of what they want to do. But it's like the thing about it is like the only way that you'll probably the only like really like real possibility that you could do that you could get a one-to-one is like animation, is like comics to animation, because that's like relatively easy. By the way, would be cool if they did like Dawn of the Dead remake, Gunn right with Snyder direct. Yeah, but remember, here's the interesting thing about that. Yes, Gunn wrote Dawn of the Dead, but by the time it got to Snyder, it was heavily rewritten by other writers because it wasn't up to snuff. So when people say that Gunn wrote Dawn of the Dead, they forget that like it was heavily rewritten after which. So it's like, and very little of his stuff was kept. So like when people say that, and when people bring up Brightburn, he was not involved in the creative process in that movie at all. So that's an interesting little argument there. But the point being, again, the way I always approach adaptations is as long as you get like the heart and soul of the work, like for Dark Knight Returns, the idea is that everyone's down on Batman, so Superman goes to try and get him to stop. Which again, that's the basis of Dark Knight Returns. And Superman comes to stop him. BVS was basically that. Now, Zach said he wants to do. I know it was written, but I was talking about the idea itself. You could. It's just I'm not a big fan of Gunn's writing style because I did not like the way he wrote Superman. I've never liked any of the things that he himself wrote. Really, not really a big fan. But anyway, it's like as long as you get like the basic plot, like even with Hush. Yes, the ending scene was a little bit like, but it wasn't like the most horrible thing in the world, in my opinion, at the very least. Belko experiment was good. I'll take your word for it. But the other example that I normally use with this is like, let's say like, hey, Crisis on Infinite Earths, the 3-part animated trilogy. Okay, there you go with that. What that did was, it still took the other like adaptation, like say the other like points of the story. Case in point, okay, the Anti-Monitor is showing up, destroying every reality possibly. And you know what that and from there, the heroes have to unite to fight him. Okay, that's fine. It's like, again, people expecting one-to-one recreations are the reason why we barely get adaptations. That's it. I'm going to tell you that right there. And they are the reason why it's so hard for people to get into comics, because remember, when you constantly expect a one-to-one adaptation, then bash on people that like it because it's not comic accurate, guess what that leads to? People not wanting to get into the hobby, and then comics get low. Comics don't grow as a hobby, which is why my personal theory that all these people that go, it says, I see your points and I agree. Parts of his writing is bad, but I can think Kevin Smith could do some with DC. Oh yeah, but have him do Green Arrow or something like that. He did great with that. But the other thing, it's like with this, it's like what. So going back to this version of Wonder Woman, I went on a long tirade, but still, it's like what this does well is it adapts Wonder Woman to a specific scenario, and it feels like, because one of the worst ways to do a story, and then this is one of the things that Tom King's Wonder Woman really fails with, is the danger of doing a Wonder Woman thing is of doing a story is when you shape the characters to the story and not the story to the characters. I feel like at the very least, this one is like an example of when you shape the story to the characters. Because if you notice, everyone at the end of the movie ends up like their regular continuity versions. Wonder Woman being the one that stayed good the entire time. So I like that. But it's like, the point is, everyone goes back to being good or good. Or in Harley Quinn's case, morally ambiguous, but still, you guys know what I mean by that. Thoughts on the original Wonder Woman actress being Amazonian, maybe her mom on the original. Oh, you mean do you mean Gal or Linda? Because if it's saying Linda, I could see Linda Carter being like Hippolyta or something like that. That would be actually really interesting. Although I would prefer, again, that all of the Amazons be Greek, because it's or Greek or someone from that region, because that's where Themyscira roughly is. And I definitely do not when they essentially whitewash it just for the sake of for brownie points from the fans. Because it's I had that same that I had to catch myself on that, because it's when you deal with let's say when Gal was cast as Wonder Woman, the thing about it is that I at first was but Wonder Woman doesn't do that. Oh wait, and since she is older, I'd say use her as Wonder Woman's is our no. You don't. I see. Here's the other thing. I think she is too old to play Wonder Woman, and it's again, I am against just bringing back actors for that sake, to using them for the official Wonder Woman. I don't think that necessarily works that well. And again, it's if that's just for nerd brownie points, when I got news for you, that just deprives another actor that could be more of a fit for the cinematic universe Wonder Woman. Because remember, if the DCU is supposed to, no matter what happens with Gunn, I still expect the DCU actors to stay in their roles for at least 10 years. She can't keep playing Wonder Woman for 10 years. That's not sustainable. But going back to this, what Batman Ninja does really well, again, is I love how whenever the Justice League is excuse me. I love how whenever the Justice League is no, I mean Wonder Woman's mom, but her no, I still say no, because I still think the Amazons excuse me, should all be from that region. I still think that's not because that's doing fan service for fan service sake. But anyway, my point is, what this does is I've noticed whenever the Justice League turn evil, short of injustice, which is a crime against humanity forever. Just saw it says, I think the always wait to make movies on big events and then try and stuff to move in, losing the character in the story. They should give character-driven stories with chance to shine. Yeah, exactly. And that's what this is, I think. Because if you notice, a lot of the plot is dependent upon Wonder Woman helping Batman and Robin and the Bat family like respond to all of a sudden like a Yakuza hurricane. As soon as I heard that, I was like, okay, what? And then I remembered what movie I was watching. I was like, yeah, okay. So for those who don't know, Yakuza hurricane is literally a hurricane that drops Yakuza members out of the sky. So I'm like, this is the most anime thing in the world. And when I was showing this movie to Britt, even she's like, yeah, this is very anime. But with this, it's like it's heavily dependent and driven by Wonder Woman herself. So when you do that, guess what that leads to? You end up with a fantastic story. And it's like, it's not because they could have easily turned all of the Justice Leaguers into Yakuza members and just left it at that. But no. The other thing that it does really well is when it reinvents the character, it really gets like, in other words, when it reinvents the character, what it does very well is it lets them be like, is it inevitably puts them back to being the good character, the good heroes, if you will. They don't stay evil because that's the other temptation that this movie avoided. By the way, if Kevin Smith does comedy, I could see him doing Lobo. I mean, sure. But anyway, so we're talking about Wonder Woman from Batman Ninja, but yeah, that's the key thing there. You always have the heroes end up being good, which again is one of the things that I think the absolute universe does really well, because when you have like the Batman who lifts, otherwise known as roided out Batman, absolute Wonder Woman who was raised in hell, Superman that came here as like an adult, Martian Manhunter, I still don't know what the hell happens in that story, per se. What you end up with is you can constantly reinvent the origin stories, but the characters still, it's a multiversal constant, if you will, that the characters will always be good no matter what. There still will be the versions of the characters that we all know and love. And that is when you really get that's when you get a storyline that really is respectful of the lore, even if it like completely reinvents the lore. You never know, guys. You never know. But anyway, so let's do a little Q&A right now. And I rate this version of Wonder Woman, I would have to say a 8 to 9 out of 10. It's really fantastic. But anyway, any questions you guys want concerning Wonder Woman, DCU, DC Comics, whatever you want to talk about, go ahead. Now that the chat has seemingly woken up, let's do this. Whatever you guys got there. Thoughts on the new Batman movie that was African? Oh, yeah, you mean Batman, what's the word? Aztec Batman. It was okay. It wasn't my favorite, but it was an interesting reinvention of it, and I'm glad they didn't just do Spanish Bruce Wayne, Spanish like Catwoman. They actually created original characters for that, because that's the lazy way to do it, but it's like they didn't take the lazy route. But one character that was never used, you'll know what I mean. He could have been Clayface. Oh, yeah. Well, yeah, I definitely think that like they could have done that. But yeah, I felt that it was like really enjoyable as a movie. And again, reinvention of the character, but still gets the fundamental core of who the character is. Again, you could do something completely wild with these characters, but if you properly like homage the actual like homage the heroism of these characters, guess what? That's what you actually did. The man that died could have been Clayface. Yeah, exactly. But it's like, if you can do any type of reinvention you really could want to do, as long as you keep them consistent with how they're supposed to like be like heroic, if you will, guess what? You could do anything. Is that like the Chinese Justice League from the New 52? Well, that was actually a rebirth concept, first off, because the Chinese Superman was that. And by that, I mean King Kong. And yeah, it's kind of like that, where like you tell like a new original story with these characters, with like, now Actually that's a little different because those were separate characters. It's not like they're reinventing what if Clark Kent and Diana Prince and Bruce Wayne were from China. It's a completely different thing, but it's a similar concept. It was cringe with the cliffhanger should have been standalone. Oh yeah, exactly. They always do that, but though, because the idea is that you always want to set it up that, hey, if we want to do more stuff, we can. That's where that kind of comes from. But yeah, but what other questions do you guys have? These are great questions. Keep them coming, everyone. Any questions that you guys want when it comes to DC lore, DC Wonder Woman adaptations, whatever you want. Anything. What would you like to see done with Yara? Well, first they have to do stuff to make her more unique, because here's the thing. DC keeps adding on Wonder Girls, and the problem with that, if you keep adding stuff, Lord knows they just added another one with Trinity, and I'm like, oh, come on, guys. But the problem is there's too many. You need to consolidate them or make them different in some way. Like make Cassie the actual Wonder Girl, make Donna Troy, give her own personality, and you could also do like with Yara, make her like the Amazonian, the one that stays on like the island with her people. That's one thing you can do. But there's so many different ways that they could be using this character, but they keep they keep adding stuff to it. And that's the problem with like a lot of Wonder Woman adaptations, is that they keep adding characters without making anything unique at all. They just don't. Thoughts on Batman versus Ninja Turtles movie or show or something? I've never seen that. I know a movie already exists, but it would be more official. Yeah, it would be, and I think it would be fun, and they definitely could do it now. But yeah, so what other quick questions do you guys have about DC? And if you guys want to talk more about the Paramount merger, you guys can go ahead and ask those questions as well, because there's plenty that we can go over, because that's like gonna be deciding on a lot of DC stuff. Jesse says, I feel like they have wasted the Amazon environment. I would like to see more about the split up tribes. Oh, yeah, 100%. I like that the King run incorporates the Wonder Girl. Shame on multimedia so seldom as Diana with Psychic. Hey, what's up, X-Men Superfan? Well, Michael, the problem with that is like, King had to fight to not, King was fighting not to include them. And second off, he doesn't really incorporate them, because you notice that when they're in the run, they don't act in any way, at least when he's writing them, like the Wonder Girls. Almost like, and this is my theory, that he originally had other Amazons in the run that were going to help Diana throughout the plot. But then, guess what? He was forced to include the Wonder Girls, so he just Command A, Command F, change their name. That's what I think. And he says, hey, I saw your post about liking the Snipers and responding to it. Like would you like to? Yeah, exactly. That was the point of that, because there's so many people that like treat people like they're lesser fans, even though how many comics people have read, just because they have different preferences with these characters. And I'm like, this is utterly stupid. I get that people have like a attachment to certain versions of the characters, but inevitably you guys gotta move on. I mean, some people have like this almost parasocial relationship with these characters that they take in any way you not agreeing with them as like an affront to their gods, practically, to use Halo terms. And I'm just like, guys, you need to really stop. It's like too many of these people treat these characters like they're real characters. That's the other thing, guys. Too many of them treat it like real characters. And I've never said that people have to like Snyderverse or Super Wonder or anything like that. I've always said, like, let me put it this way. Robert on the show is the biggest Clovis fan I've met. he and I have great conversations because, like, yeah, it's totally like not a problem. It's like we're just gonna like talk about like comics that we like. We can agree to disagree on certain things, and then we just move on with that. Since Batman did Japan and Africa and stuff, what other character would work similar to that? Wonder Woman, for one, because she has a global character. Maybe even Superman. There's like a lot of characters that you could really do that. Basically, go with any character that has gotten a The World graphic novel. That's basically all these creators from different countries. You could definitely do that. But yeah, but what other questions do you guys have about DC lore, Paramount, whatever you guys wanna talk about? Go ahead and drop it in there. A new Justice League International would be cool. I mean, as a comic, I'm like, okay, but it's like I really feel like just have one Justice League book, because when you have too many of them, you dilute the brand. And I feel like them doing Justice League Unlimited this way, where it's like any character, any hero is on the Justice League, depending on how they respond and stuff. I'm like, yeah, that's the best way I think would like roll that. What's your favorite version of the Suicide Squad movies, the AR or gun version? I'm partial gun. I prefer, honestly, I gotta prefer the AR, because here's the problem with the guns version. And it's a problem with a lot of guns movies. He relies too much on swearing and like what I call poop humor, that I'm like, no, I really prefer like the more serious movie. Now, granted, the one that came out is not the pure Ayer version. That movie was also royally screwed with when it comes to Warner Brothers. But of the two, I prefer. I don't like the gun version. I really don't. Wonder Woman in China, like a fiction based on Chinese mythology. That could be interesting. That could definitely be pretty cool as like a short thing. Jesse says, I don't understand how the main DC characters don't run into the Dakota-verse characters more. Well, because here's the problem with that, Jesse. For the longest time, the Dakota, because here's the thing. Here's why they can't do that. DC does not own the Dakota-verse characters. People, for some reason, people think that DC owns like owns those characters. They don't. What they're owned by Milestone, and Milestone is an independent company. They're just published through DC, because for the longest time these characters have been associated like almost completely with DC. So that's the problem. So what you inevitably like see with that is and that's why when people say free Milestone, okay, they're already free. What do you want? So it's like my point bringing that up is like, look, what you deal with, and what's up, Battlegoon? What you deal with is like they relatively can't. And when people talk about DC should put out more of the Milestone books, talk to Milestone. Talk to Milestone. By the way, Wonder Woman in the Amazon River would be cool. Oh yeah, that could also really work. That would be really fun. Prefer the animated Suicide Squad movie. Oh, nice. To me, Gunn is like a frat boy as a director, but better for something for a Family Guy or DC, or like any of those characters. Like I could see him directing a pretty decent Lobo movie. Like he can do those characters. The non-DC thing, a DC owns is Wildstorm and some sort of Virgo. Well, actually, no. I mean, DC also, yeah. Wait, the non-DC thing, DC owns, yeah, exactly. They don't own Milestone. People think they do, but they really don't. So I'm like, guys, it's like, because yes, could DC do more to push them? But if the books don't sell, of course DC's not going to push them. It's a business thing. I hope you're having a good day, Jared. I am Battlegoon. Thank you, my friend. But yeah, that's the issue here. It's like, but it's like, again, so let's go. So that's where, yeah, Lobo would work perfectly for Gunn, 100%. And it's Lobo, Ambush Bug, even any of those like crude and Mexoplick, any of those characters would work fantastically for Gunn. But it's like he does, and he has even said it himself, he doesn't like working on the big characters like Superman, Batman, or Wonder Woman for those reasons. And you can kind of see it in his Superman movie, which I liked for the most part, But his Superman movie is basically like him not understanding. Oh, Plastic Man would also been really great. Yeah, exactly. There's so many other characters. And he has said he likes doing the obscure characters because he can do whatever he wants with it, which then in and of itself is like concerning, because I think that we shouldn't allow like those people to we shouldn't allow people to just say I like these characters because then I can change everything. Because if you let them change the minor characters, inevitably down the line they will start changing the major characters, and they'll be like, well, you're okay with this. Michael says, not that we're going to get it, but Gunn would probably do a fun Beetle. Oh, Blue and Gold? Oh my gosh, yes, he would have done great with that. Any explicitly comedic book, I think he could do well. Now, let me put it this way. I may not have liked his Suicide Squad movie, but that is a concept that is wholly made for Gunn, because when you look at like the concept of Suicide Squad, it's like all these random ass characters coming together for like a mission where a lot of them could die. That's straight up Gunn's alley. He can pick whatever DC villain he wants and then just roll with it. And it's like so far the only Gunn project that I've pretty much enjoyed mostly is Creature Commandos, really. And that is like one that's like, because again, that plays to Gunn's strengths. He can use whatever character he wants, no matter the obscure, and then he can just like, what's the word? And then he can kill off anyone he wants, and he kills off a good portion of them. So you could definitely do that. But yeah, it's like that's the main issue, and I feel like you can tell where his priorities lay based upon the projects he has greenlit. Like when the Paramount thing got like announced, there were people that were saying that like, oh, if they throw out the DCU, that means we will have a DCU without Batman, Wonder Woman, or the Justice League. And I go, that's not Paramount's fault or DC or Warner Brothers' fault. That's James Gunn's fault, because remember, he's in charge of greenlighting all these projects. And trust me, he could push for Wonder Woman movies or Batman movies or any of these other characters. But he chose first, okay, so let's do Batman. Let's do like Batman. Well, let's prioritize like Clayface and this character no one gives a crap about. And then just like go off of that. But I'm like, bro, the reason why that worked with Marvel, the reason why you had a job at Marvel for the DCU, hey, what's up, Cameron? The reason why Gunn had a Gunn was able to get Guardians of the Galaxy greenlit is because the MCU had already had like audience trust through Iron Man, through like Avengers, I think. Yeah, it was Iron Man, and then after Avengers when Guardians came out. The point is, the MCU had enough audience trust that you could propose a talking raccoon in a tree, and people would definitely like at least give it a shot. That's why Guardians happened. Snyder would go with and it wasn't canceled, just no plans yet. Oh, I'm sure it was canceled. That's like studio for cancel. I love the idea that John's a huge fan of Wonder Woman, Jason Todd, or like the story about her trying to make. See, here's the thing. I don't want Wonder Woman being like that involved with the Bat family, because I feel like it's like she gets forced into that too much. And I'm like, no, I really feel like, at least for me, I would prefer it if she just mentors the Wonder Girls instead of being forced into the Bat family. That's just me. Plus, there's plenty of other Bat family characters that can do that. So that's like my point there. Like, even in Three Jokers, say what you want about it, but Barbara Gordon played that role pretty well, I would say. Yeah, so let's get any like concluding questions, and then we'll wrap up. Any questions that you guys have that you guys would like to discuss? I'm excited for Man of Tomorrow. What would you like to see in that film? Are you excited too? So I'm pretty like I want to see what he does with this movie, because let me put it this way: I'm more cautiously optimistic, because again, while I liked his while I liked his Superman movie, for the most part, I didn't think it was that perfect. But to that point, when you get to this, it's like I'm looking forward to seeing Superman versus Brainiac. That's what I'm really looking forward to. Snyder's Wonder Woman stole BVS, but yeah, she should be her own franchise. She definitely did. And then you had like the Wonder Woman movie, the first one, which was fantastic. Hear me out. The character that's pretty important, but not enough to mess up things up. Going to great with Tim Drake. Yeah, I see. Tim is too major for Gunn. I really feel like he has to deal with he works best with characters that like put it this way again. He would work best with Lobo or any of those characters. I don't think he works with any of the Robins or Batman or any of those characters. Why is Jason Todd a big fan of one? I don't think that she is. I think that was more of Jesse saying he would love the idea of that. But I don't think Jason's a big fan of Wonder Woman. At least I haven't seen much evidence of that to begin with. But yeah, so what other questions do you guys have? And then we'll wrap up for the day. Oh, wait. He likes characters like Detective Chimp, whom I love. Yep. And the Authority that are heavy hitters. Yeah, exactly. So it's like, yeah, have him do those projects and then just move on. Not very major due to Tim Drake isn't the big Robin people like no. I'm gonna push back on that, particularly nowadays when DC has been really pushing Tim Drake as Robin. So it's like I very much disagree with that because he's been getting a big push, particularly by DC. But yeah, so how long do we expect we have to survive the Tom King era? For Wonder Woman, again, my prediction is it ends at issue 40. And again, we're just starting the third. So issue 31 comes out this month. And then I think we have 9 more issues. That's what I think. And then, so there's one of 2 ways DC could go with this. Option 1 is he leaves at issue 40, and then it's like they have another writer come on and do a 10 like fun story, and then like they get to issue 50 and then reset with a number 1. However, the other option is they let King work until 50 in order to get to issue like just so they can end and bring on a new writer at 50. The reason why I'm not so sure that's like going to happen is because when you look at what King has said, he said that like he is very much like too overworked with his comic book writing and his TV writing. So I think he is looking for a way out of that. So I'm like, that's why I'm more leaning toward 40, particularly since from what I've heard, from the way it's being represented, it looks like the Wonder War is gonna be his last arc. I don't know. I feel like Tim has outgrown Robin, but not into another Nightwing. Yeah, but they still call him Robin, and that's the thing. He has been the Batman and Robin, at least in the Batman books for a while. Yes, there was a Batman and Robin book where it was Damian, but you know what I mean? It's a different like point there. But yeah, so what other what final questions do you guys have, and then we'll wrap up for the night. He feels more than a sidekick. Yeah, but Robin in recent years has been redefined not necessarily as a sidekick. Wonder Twins was planned, hoping gun. No, they're not going to do that because here's the problem. No, there were too many projects that no one knows who that is, and I feel like at the very least, if Paramount doesn't like get rid of Gunn, he's not going to be able to greenlight anything he wants. Right, like I could see a whole Tim Drake solo a street level book. That would be fun as well. I could definitely see that. I could definitely see that. Are there any performers you'd like to see play Wonder Woman? Just anyone from Greece or like that region that has the accent and everything like that? Because I feel like it doesn't make sense for like for like someone with an American accent to play Wonder Woman at this point. I need Wonder Woman film soon, Batman soon to follow. Like at least give us Wonder Woman gun. Yeah, exactly. But it's likely not going to happen there. It's now official. Yeah, it is now official. Well, let me put it this way. It still has to go through regulatory things, but Netflix has officially backed out, and Warner Brothers has formally at least accepted Paramount's offer. So I would say, yeah, that's like I would say it might as well be official. It might as well be official. Which is going to lead to a lot of interesting things. But let me put it this way. Paramount's the better option because Netflix historically does not like physical media. So it's like, I'm with Paramount, that's safer, by the way. I think Gunn does not like Wonder Woman, to be honest. Oh, Gunn and King and all those people do not like Wonder Woman. I'm sure of it. Like the way he used Cersei in Creature Commands. Bro, don't even get me started. There are rumors going around the internet that David Ellis is not a fan of connected universes. Okay, Hunter, let me address that. You have a point there. But see, the thing is, if he were not a fan of shared universes, he wouldn't have pushed like Transformers or something like that. But let's assume you're right, real quick, because I've said if the DCU does not work, like let's say the next DCU movies like Supergirl and Clayface don't perform well, and Lanterns. Let's say those underperform. What that will lead to, I could see DC taking at least a break from the shared universes and just doing occasional one-off movies. And then if something like pops off, like if they like let's say they finally do a Wonder Woman movie and it makes $1 billion, then I think that they'll build off of that. That's what I could see them doing. But in terms of like the overly connected universe, there is a scenario that I think, particularly if the DCU doesn't work out, that I think they do go in that direction. I was thinking a character that's semi-important. I get your point and fits his writing style. Maybe Beast Boy. Beast Boy, you could actually work. You know what? I'm going to go with that. I'm going to agree with that. Beast Boy, you could definitely work because Beast Boy is a minor character enough that it works for Gunn's like sensibilities. Let's see. Oh, wait. Why do so many versions of Cersei get nerfed? Because they don't know how to properly utilize Cersei. Because Cersei is like this uber powerful sorceress, but it's like, again, a lot of DC writers or a lot of comic book writers want these characters to be as grounded as possible because otherwise they can't write them other words. And I'm like, I get it. You want stakes. You want the character to be easily defeatable. Wonder Woman is ridiculously powerful. You can't like you can power up Cersei. It's like Superman fighting Doomsday. I feel like many writers want Cersei to be as dangerous as, say, Joker, not a god witch who can ruin reality. Yeah, because a lot of these writers would rather be writing Batman. That's the other factor, guys. But yeah, I think that's a good place to leave it. So this was a fun stream. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Yeah, this was like one of the best versions of Wonder Woman. And it shows that you can routinely reinvent the character. So as for next week's episode, we are going to be talking about the original Golden Age Wonder Woman, the one by William Moulton Marston, and I have the omnibus right here. Yes, Golden Age Wonder Woman. I'm going to be talking about that run, and as far as like, what's the word? As far as like Wonder Woman Wednesday, I'm going to be talking about what would and why do fans seem to have latched on to absolute Steve Trevor instead of mainline Steve Trevor? On Thursday, Britt and I will be interviewing comic book writer Jeremy Adams to talk about like his approach for like Green Lantern, Wonder Woman, and the such. Yes, Jeremy Adams is finally coming on the show. Hell yeah. And yeah, I will see you guys later. Remember, Steve Trevor sucks. See you guys later. Bye-bye.